Our security analyst, Dr. Adam Bona, has called for the sacking of the Controller General of the Ghana Immigration Service, Kwame Esuya-Techi, for his poor handling of the deportation of the Chinese Galamsey Queen, Aisha Wan. Dr. Bona's call follows comment by President Akufo-Addo to the effect that he is unsure whether or not Aisha Wan was actually deported as the country was made to believe in 2018. Aisha Wan was arrested and tried for engaging in illegal mining in Ghana. She was arrested again a couple of weeks ago for engaging in same. Her re-emergence has since generated a lot of concern across the board, with many critics casting doubt on the country's security setup and national effort underway to clamp down on illegal mining. Speaking on a whole-based radio station as part of his tour of the Volta region, President Akufo-Addo also expressed the same concern, but questions whether the Galamsey kingpin was actually deported.
When you have a situation like this woman who was, I'm not still sure whether she was in fact deported or whether she fled the country the first time and has now come back, but whatever. There still seems to be some uncertainty about it. But whichever way it is, she has become the sort of nickname for all that the Galamsey represents. And unfortunately, also for the involvement of Chinese nationals in Ghana in this particular illicit trade. We have constantly to work at it. We need to have the cooperation of the courts. Until recently, till I came, the punishment for people caught was relatively light, a fine, and even if we're going to go to custodial sentences, was relatively minimal. We've changed the law to stiffen the punishments for people caught. For foreigners, I think it's now 15 to 25 years, depending on the severity of what it is. So we're also now going to test our judicial system, to what extent it is going to be responsive, especially when somebody like her goes on to trial. But I'm persuaded that the fight is in the right place. It's not an easy fight. You can see that the last election, the concerted efforts that the Galamsey community made to try and turn us out of office because of our fight. Fortunately, the good people of Ghana decided otherwise. But it shows you the extent to which this fight is biting. It is not necessarily an indication that our security is weak, but it is a fact that our borders are relatively porous, and I think there's just no point in anybody saying to the contrary. It is a simple truth. And with porous borders, of course, it means also the possibility of criminal elements being able to infiltrate and come into the country without so much difficulty. But you have a situation whereby the spread of the law enforcement agencies was able to trap this woman. Yeah, she didn't turn up at the police station and say, I am Aisha. So that in itself is also telling you that people are not sleeping. Yes, somebody can find a way to come back into the country through unofficial means, change their identity. And obviously she didn't try plastic surgery to change her appearance, but she even came under a different name. But at the end of the day, the security and the law enforcement agencies have been able to apprehend it. I think we need to encourage them to do more such work and to cooperate with them, because my understanding is that it was a tip-off. It was a tip-off from some of the people in her vicinity who indicated to the security, the law enforcement agencies, that she was operating in that area. That cooperation is extremely important.
But reacting to the president's comment, Dr. Adam Bona is asking the president to relieve the Controller General of the Immigration, who is on a 2-year contract after retiring from the service, Kwame Esuya-Techi. He said Mr. Techi is complicit in this matter, and therefore his continuous stay in office won't help Ghana's fight against illegal mining.
You tell me that Aisha Wan came, and you have, the president's cousin, Gabriel Chedaku, saying that, you know what, immigration, you can't. It is not true. All over the world, unless that country is not looking for you, they flag your details. Once you come in, you will not actually even be able to get in. But unfortunately, she got in. And so mine is that, and I'm saying, televise proceedings in court. We want to know what happened. Okay. Aisha Wan speaks Twi, she speaks fluent English, and she speaks Mandarin. So I'm sure, even if they use a translator, we would all hear it. And it will serve as a warning to others who would want to bring, galamseyers into this country, Chinese galamseyers and other people. So one, televise her proceedings. Two, go for her itemized telephone records for us to know what happened. And then three, get rid of Techi, because Techi is complicit in this whole thing that is happening.
He also reviewed the president's admission of Aisha Juan not leaving the country when she was arrested initially, indicates the weakness in our security setup.
And as the president has just admitted and alluded to, he himself, if the president says, I don't know what happened, whether she was deported or not, then me, as an ordinary person, Bona, what can I say? If the president, the first gentleman of the land, says he has, this morning, and the records are there how she came in. I'm just surprised that they are not still briefing the president. The records are there. And one of the officers who facilitated it today is working at, is working at one of our important gateways into this country. And my point is that let's not play down on this whole thing that is going on. I won't say it is state-sponsored, but what I can say is that there are individuals who we are paying to protect us, who probably are complicit, or I would say are complicit in this whole thing. So I'm happy the president has admitted, but let's go beyond the admission and make sure forensic, proper investigative machinery is rolled out to bring this whole thing to finality.
Dr. Adam Bonner is a security analyst. Now, this afternoon, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu says the decision by the National Communications Authority to order the blocking of unregistered SIM cards is illegal. The NCA rolled out a number of punitive measures against users who were yet to comply with the new registration regulations. Report indicates that the NCA has rolled back this order. However, the Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu says the NCA had absolutely no power to issue such an order. We'll bring you details of this story later on, but relatedly, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu has said the NDC will resist any decision by the Electoral Commission to use the Ghana card as the only document for registration and voting in the 2024 general elections until the card is made available to every Ghanaian. According to the Tamale South MP, the current challenges associated with the acquisition of the Ghana card are a deliberate scheme by the ruling party and its agent within the Electoral Commission to disenfranchise many Ghanaian voters. Speaking at the party's youth forum in Wale Wale, Mr. Haruna says the NDC demands the conduct of free and fair elections and will resist any conspiracy between the chairperson of the Electoral Commission and President Akufo-Addo to repeat the happenings in the 2020 general elections. Elias Utanko has more.
The leader was speaking at an event held in Wale Wale in the Northeast region, organized to mark the 6th anniversary of the NDC Youth Group under the theme The Role of the Youth in Election. Also in attendance as specially invited dignitaries included the party's election director, Elvis Afriye Ankra, Fifi Kwete, women organizer Hannah Bisiu, MP for Sanargu ABA Fusini, MP for Bumpurgu Napanduri Abednego Bandem. The event as well brought together several regional and constituency executives and party supporters from the grassroots levels. Addressing the party followers, the Minority Leader and former Communications Minister, amongst other things, criticized the government's shambolic handling of the registration process of acquiring the National Identification Card, also called the Ghana Card.
Every Ghanaian is entitled to it. It is our people that is government to provide it. Every day we are queuing for it. Reduce the queues, clear the queues, make sure we have it. And when we have it, we will use it for SIM registration and you can use it for purpose of election. But where we are not certain, as we are not certain this evening, that every Ghanaian has it, because I see a queue every day in Tamale. There's a queue here in Wale Wale and Melego. You cannot say that something you ought to provide me that you have failed to provide, I should suffer the consequence of it.
Let's take you to Parliament now and listen to the Minority Leader addressing a press conference there, challenging the NCA's power to be blocking SIM cards of a registered Ghanaian Ghanaians who don't have the Ghana card yet.
Celebrated as a shining beacon of democracy, good governance and progress. Commencing in 1994, considerable efforts have been undertaken to improve the nation's telecoms infrastructure and expand access to voice communication, including mobile telephony. By 1998, the first communication policy, Compol 98 conference, was convened, and this culminated in the separation of Ghana Post from Ghana Telecom and the pursuit of foreign investment to rapidly build infrastructure and introduce new technologies. It also placed Ghana in the forefront of the GSM revolution in Africa with a very competitive telecommunications environment. The days continues with the development of the country's optic fiber resources, improved spectrum, telecommunications regulatory, legal and policy enhancement, granting opportunity to embark on a comprehensive ICT for accelerated development and a pervasive application of technology across all sectors, be it in education, health, commerce, environment, governance, and security. So that when you are told yesterday that digitalization only started with one Dr. Baumia and one Oslo Wusu and Nana Adu you will be able to trace the historical antecedents of the evolution in the telecom sector, then led by late Edward Salia, subsequently followed and supported by John Dramani Mahama as minister, who eventually assumed the reins of government as president of the republic.
Yay.
In recent times, it appears that the success of the communication sector is haunting this government, and members of government are not even placing value on its threat to our democracy and endeavoring to emasculate networks to intimidate subscribers whose freedoms are regularly subjected to database manipulations. Instead of promoting the widespread use of communication services, what is obtaining now is an unnecessary request for registration, re-registration, multiple registration of SIMs for contrived reasons. And I emphasize that registration, re-registration, then we end up with a blockade. They are simply punishing Ghanaians over their own failures and inability to synchronize data between the National Identification Authority and mobile operators in Ghana. That punishment on the Ghanaian citizen remains unjustified, and we in the minority will not sit aloof on the matter. It can be recalled that during the period of COVID-19, so much reliance was placed on ICT usage. In such emergencies, and irrespective of the cybersecurity laws we have in this country, the communications hygiene did not compromise the national identity registration crisis to warrant a blanket blockade of SIM registration. So even under COVID, we lived, and we lived with our SIMs. Indeed, the irony is that in the search for increased revenue to meet the voluptuous appetite of the government, instead of encouraging the usage of mobile communications to promote even their failing e-levy, the government is imposing obstacles to the continuing growth of the telecom sector and with the profitability of the country. The country benefits immensely from its telecom regime. The frustrations in registration of SIMs with telecom companies through third-party private entities and NIA with a different mandate can only be attributed to the repressive tendencies of this government. So you simply cannot understand. Mobile phone operators must register, NIA must register. A private entity comes to play a role. Naturally, everywhere in the world, if you want a SIM card, you register with your mobile phone operator, not through a third-party operator, not through any vehicle. And then you need to work synchronizing the data with National Identification Authority. Many of you were in this country when the chief executive of NIA said that my data is not the same thing as the data that is required to do SIM registration. Yet a poor Ghanaian must be punished with a blockade because of this administrative and institutional failings. The International Telecoms Union actually places premium on emergency telecommunications. To completely cut telecom services to subscribers for no other reason than to limit usage by citizens is the lowest point in a nation's telecoms development. Ghana is not the first country to undertake a SIM registration exercise, but Ghana is the only country you are hearing the chaos in the telecom landscape greeted by their lack of understanding of mobile telephone as an essential emergency tool.
That's Haruna Idrisu leading the minority to challenge the NC over powers to cut calls from unregistered SIMs. Now, some farmers and residents living along the flowway of the White Volta River in the northeast region have appealed for assistance to salvage their drowning food crops following the spillage of the Bagre Dam by Burkina Faso. According to farmers, the damage to their farm produce will worsen their poor living conditions as they have invested their life savings into the farms. The dam was opened on the 1st of this month and is expected to coincide with heavy rains to cause massive floods across some 185 communities and affect an estimated 200,000 people in the north of the country. In response to the spillage, farmers in the community of Pansempe have begun harvesting their immature crops as the spilled waters make their way to their farmlands. Correspondent Elias Utanko has more in this report.
The 3-year-old Alasan Yao is a subsistence farmer at Pasimpe community in the Westman Presi municipality of the Northeast region. Together with his senior brother and 2 teenage boys, they have been working around the clock to harvest the crops on these 2-hectare maize fields in response to a flood alert issued by the National Disaster Management Organization.
We hear that they are going to spill the Bagre Dam. And after now, the maize is not yet matured. And when it's not mature like that, when you harvest the crop, you don't have place to dry them. So normally, at times, most of them will spoil. So because of the Bagre Dam that we are harvesting them early like that.
Alasan and his brother are among the dozens of local farmers in this community who have inherited farmlands within the buffer zones of the White Volta River and the flowway of the Bagre Dam from Burkina Faso. The farmlands here are fertile, however, not conducive for cultivation during the rainy season when the spillage of the dam often occurs. During this period every year, farmers are compelled to harvest their crops in their immature state.
When they open the water like this, at times our farm inputs, our farm input, everything will go away and leave us. And most of the point, it brings disaster to us. So when we are in it, fighting to get our foodstuffs, maybe some of them will lose their life through that. So because of that, it disturbs us too much. So we are building to any government or any NGO who can come and assist us to canoes or anything that can help us. When the water comes like this, we can be able to convey our things before the water comes and take over the land.
Close to Alasan's farm, 42-year-old Salamatu Amadou has led her entire household to also salvage their maize farmland as the water from the spillage makes its way towards the area. She said they were responding to the flood warning sent out weeks ago by the Disaster Management Organization. As part of the preparations to move to the higher grounds, some farmers whose farmlands are submerged already are risking their lives using old canoes, trying to harvest their drowning crops. They are calling on the National Disaster Management Organization to deploy canoes to help them harvest their crops.
If the water comes and we are going to harvest our maize, we don't have plenty boats here. Some go inside the water, maybe it's next day, and then the small insects, they are all affecting. Somebody can get snake bites, and maybe if he didn't get that, he would die because of it.
The opening of the Bagre Dam is an annual occurrence since 1994. That often coincides with heavy rains to leave a devastating trail of destruction in some 185 communities within the Sada zone. The spillage in 2020 led to the death of over 10 people and massive destruction of properties, including farmlands and social infrastructures in the region. The National Disaster Management Organization has since arrived in the region and activated its flood response exercise codenamed Operation Tenderboat. The Director General, Eric Nana Ajiman Prempe, led the stakeholders dialogue at Nalirgu on how to coordinate the floods that could occur as a result of the spillage.
Already some communities have been affected. They are cut off already. The water is now coming. Let me give you this information. For the first time in the history, the flow of the water, the rate is very high. Today, the water is coming at 672 million gallons per hour.
The Director General repeated the notice for all those carrying out activities along the riverbanks to immediately stop and evacuate.
Let us all encourage our people to harvest their crops, those on the banks. Let us also advise them, those who have livestock, to get them to a safer place, so that at the end of the day, the water will not wash them.
He said NADMO will continue to provide technical and relief support to the people affected by this annual occurrence, while urging the residents to pray so that the government could get finances to continue with the construction of the Pualugu multipurpose dam project.
This is a project we should all pray that government get finances to complete it, and it will help us. And this is a long-term solution to the Bagre Dam spillage.
Until then, the twin annual occurrence caused by the spillage of the dam and the torrential seasonal rains will continue to wreak havoc on the lives and livelihoods of poor farmers in the north of the country. For Joy News, Ilyas Sutanko, Wale.
Well, among measures to check the perennial challenge is the construction of the Pualugu multipurpose dam, which is yet to start 3 years after President Akufo-Addo cut short. Former CEO of the Savannah Accelerated Development Authority, SADA, Dr. Charles Abogri, appeals to government to see to the construction because it will bring relief to the local people.
There's a cost to those who are going to lose their land, and let's be very clear about that. So the people in the Tanisi area and the Kusasi area will lose a lot of land. So every dam construction has a lot of cost, and that has to be dealt with. But its attractiveness is mainly twofold. The fact that downstream of the dam, it will reduce the flooding. That's the first one. The second is that there is significant amount of water for irrigation. And that irrigation capability is a nationwide asset. And the possibility to transform agriculture and agro-industry in that area is great. It's 25,000 hectares. There's no irrigation scheme anywhere on the continent that big, if it is actually realized. And the potential to turn agriculture around is amazing.
Okay.
And then thirdly, of course, there is some hydropower potential, but it's not that big. So that the revised design sacrificed the hydropower, but substituted it with solar. So the potential is definitely, the developmental potential is really absolutely big. And of course, if you have a large water body, you can also grow fish. And you can do vegetables upstream of the dam. So if you have an investment in the community to be able to have fish, that's a fantastic income source. Finally, it will solve the water problems for many of the small towns. So Wale was factored into the design. But Pualugu should be factored into the design for water. And Zebile should be factored into the design for water. And therefore, to be able to mop up that water is also a means of solving the water problems, especially as northern Ghana in particular is urbanizing very fast. So the economic potentials are large.
Go to other stories now, and the Bono East Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Fred Adumako-Boateng, has said that there is the need to intensify calls for preventive methods for various medical conditions, including HIV, as the region's HIV prevalence has over the past few years been higher than the national average. He was speaking at the back of a recent publication that revealed that a total of 23,495 people tested positive for HIV in the first half of this year. My colleague Anas Sabet has more in the following report.
Ghana recorded a total of 23,495 positive HIV cases within the first half of the year. A situation health authorities say is as a result of complacency and ignorance, as little is being done with regards to sensitization since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Here in the Bono East region, the prevalence of HIV for the past few years has been higher than that of the national average. Dr. Fred Adumako-Boateng is the Regional Director of Health Services.
If you look at the statistics for HIV, especially you look at the prevalence, you will see Bono East, we are on the higher side if you compare to the national figure. For instance, 2019, the prevalence, HIV prevalence for Bono East was 2.5 as compared to the country, which is 2. And then fast forward, if you look at our prevalence for 2020, Bono East was 3.5 as compared to a national figure of 2. And that has been the trend.
Dr. Fred Adumako-Boateng attributed the economic vibrancy of the region coupled with its location as key contributing factors to the higher prevalence of HIV in the region.
We have a number of reasons, and we also fall in the category of some other special regions, looking at where we are situated geographically in the country, and more especially looking at the business economic vibrancy of Bono East. You see, almost if you want to go from north to south, south to north, you want to go to Burkina and almost all the cars are passing through here. So you can see that aspect. If you are talking about big markets in West Africa, we are also there. You look at Tachiman market, and it's touted that almost everybody comes from West Africa to this market.
Regarding the viral suppression stage, where 95% of those positive are expected to be placed on medication to ensure that the disease is no longer transmissible, Dr. Adumako-Boateng revealed that only 41% of those on medication have reached the suppression stage.
In terms of the 95, where the challenge is really for us is the suppression. Only 41% of the 91% of those who have been put on the antiretroviral therapy, really, we have been able to get suppression. And there are a lot of issues there that we are trying to address.
Now, acting head of the Trauma and Emergency Unit at the 37 Military Hospital, Major Dr. Edu Jemfi, is calling for the retrofitting of all ambulances in the country to suit purpose. According to him, the current state of ambulances does not meet health standards in the transportation of accident victims. Major Edu Jemfi spoke to Joy News.
When it comes to how they come in, then again, it involves the ambulance system. And when it comes to trauma, we look at three main things. We have to look at the pre-hospital care, the transportation of the patient, and also the hospital care. We have bought some ambulance as a country, but I think we have to look at how we are going to make use of them by retrofitting them to suit purposes that we want to achieve. So, for example, We can have different types, like a basic life support ambulance, where you know that if somebody has just a minor pain or issue that is related to an outpatient, you can use that for. But in a situation where a patient or group of patients have been involved in an accident, somebody has a chest injury, abdominal injury, you cannot send those ambulances. You need to send advanced trauma life support ambulances, which in the US they call the level 3 or type 3 ambulances. And those are the things that we have to look at. Not just the ambulances, but what they are retrofitted to do.
So are you saying that the ambulances that we use now are not entirely fit for purpose, or they are just to manage the situation to an extent to get patients to the hospital?
I think when it comes to trauma per se, we would have to actually up our game in terms of how we retrofit the ambulances for that. So generally, obviously for other things, it will be able to serve those purposes. But in terms of trauma, we have to do something about the type of ambulances that we have. Yeah.
So at your unit, how are you able to manage trauma? Do people know the post-traumatic issues that come along with accidents? How are you educating them? What do you think should be the focus of those who ensure safety on the road, to ensure that at least people may get involved in an accident, but they are able to overcome such incidents?
So, I mean, we have to look at it from even outside the hospital, as I've been saying. And one of the things that we actually have to look at necessarily is finding ways to get the DVLA that issue these licenses for the drivers to introduce training drivers by being bystander caregivers. Because when somebody is injured, in most of the times, you realize that how the patient is even carried into the vehicle, how the people are laid down, how they are positioned, all those things affect the outcome of these patients.
This is Joy News Today. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we have latest from the world of business with Beverly Broom. Stay with us.
Hello, good afternoon. It's time to do business with me, Beverly Broom. The National Energy Transition Committee has been urged to fast-track processes in its mandate to develop a robust energy transition policy. According to West African Regional Manager for the Natural Resources Governance Institute, Nafi Chinri, there should be transparency and further engagement with civil society organizations to develop effective policies.
The committee is to assess the benefits, risk, and cost of global energy transition and determine risk mitigation measures along with cross-cutting issues that must be addressed. According to Nafi Chinri, more effort is needed to accelerate the activities of the committee before the 27th Climate Change Conference of the parties.
What I highlighted was the need for the committee to accelerate its work, because if they are aiming to present at COP27, it's important that by now at least they should be nearing their assignment. They should open up the space for engagement with civil society and other groups and the Ghanaians in general. And because we know that there has been some engagement, and in fact they engaged civil society a couple of months ago, but we don't have access to any document that would give us an opportunity to actually interrogate some of the issues and the numbers in the transition plan.
Fiscal policy analyst Dr. Alex Mpabin said revenue from the country's fossil fuels should be channeled in building a robust renewable energy.
As we transition from fossil fuel, which is mainly oil, and then moving into greener energy like solar panel and the rest, what are the challenges for those who are already working within the fossil fuel sector? So there's the urgent need for us to reconsider. Government need to have a solid plan on how to integrate those who have those skills, who have been trained within fossil fuel. How do we transition them into greener energies? You shouldn't also lose sight of the fact of the economic implication with regards to lost revenue. Currently, the oil sector contributes a lot to government revenue. But as you try to move away from fossil, that is a way of decommissioning whatever you are getting from oil revenue. And I do believe the way out, I think it's for the government to first starting to invest some of the revenue coming out from our fossil into renewable energy.
The National Energy Transition Committee has been tasked to evaluate the current situation in the energy sector and the effectiveness of existing policies and measures.
Now to the Ashanti region, where leadership of traders at the Kumasi Central Market has cautioned against the repetition of what they describe as poor construction work at the Phase 2 of the Kejetia redevelopment project. The Central Market traders who are currently plying their wares at Kejetia Market say they have encountered challenges which hamper the smooth running of their businesses. Lava Firm's Mona Lisa Frimpong has more.
Traders and management of the Kumasi Kejetia City Market have reached an agreement to undertake a monthly inspection of the ongoing reconstruction of the Central Market. The traders say this has become necessary to avoid any unfortunate experience after completion. Market queen for cloth sellers, Evelyn Yabwedu, spoke to Love News.
Eno sa niema no ne mpese ebese hu biem ewa ha enu ti na mpanimfo ne ya hye se every last Friday of every month bia no e wo se ye ba na ye kwa round so na niema a wo mo ye wo ho no no ye de ye ni hunu bi na mistakes a e ba wa ha no sei no ensa happen e wa ha no because ye ba ha no na ho kire ne niema bia ye nka ne asam ensuo ne niema bia e kokokoso no enya ahomeka.
According to her, the traders are currently working with the managers of the market to ensure the new market runs a commodity-based system after completion.
Near your friend is say, Okwa Yomo, Josio, body Josio, and Sekai, T-shirt, BB Josio, Yaba Hanensono, I may yes, I may. So, no, ya the boy and ya the phone, ya the bin so bumping for no, because so be a honomocrana, Orbano, or Ton, Abia, and Fanny says, material or Toma. Not in any Sabian to when we are tardy. It's your Busan's or Ton, or Ton Toma, or Baba Betinamuno. Not a yard for front water. It's when you are fast, you want to say, Yea, my Sabia and Fancy me down to Manu. Namin Kwama Quatan must say, may ram a lazy for Aquafaco, may ram and tobacco faco, may ram a second aquafaco. Say me down to Manua, may share send to my phone in Abacofaco.
Chairman for Kumasi City Traders, Daniel Ankoma, says the Central Business District can only be decongested after completion of the Central Market project. They are therefore calling on the project contractors to speed up work to meet the deadline.
Speed up, content na entumi meet time because adwadifo a wokajetia ene miami omwa anya kajetia nche no a omo enchenche no womu nyina esu womu hunu amane nti yesese adwuma no en contentem se de omsu hye no sabe ya ebetumi di adwadifo no a anya ba bia nta wokajetia ebesa akoyechi na ama obi akwakonya ne store.
Mona Lisa Frimpong reporting.
And that's how we end business on Joy News today. For more news, do log on to myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Beverly Broom. Up next is sports.
Hello, welcome to the sports segment. And former Chief Executive Officer of Asante Kotoko Opokunti has entreated fans of the club to lower their expectation despite a winning start to the Champions League. The Porcupines end an away victory over RC Kadiogo of Burkina Faso in the first leg of the CAF Champions League qualifying match, courtesy a late winner through winger Isaac Opong at the General Karioukou Stadium in Benin. Opokunti says the team will need time to gel.
For expectation, we need to lower it, but to give our maximum support to them, because you can't immediately start from number 2, number 3. You have to start from number 1. You get me? If number 1 goes well, number 2 will come, and that is where you see that we are jarring. The expectation, everyone will expect that we win, but they also need our support to push the players so that our expectation will not come short, but they will come out with flying colors. So the expectation should be there, but we should support the team at any given time, at any cost. Supporting the team, the players will also feel like they are welcome, and they also give their best for the team. As I said, they have to take match after match. You get me? And because the team is new, they have to, if they will gel, it means they have to continue going to the next stages. Other than that, it will be very, very difficult. So they have to take one match at a time and improve upon it. Then gradually they will reach that stage.
And the Ghana Football Association's prosecutor has charged Premier League side Legon City's official of the club, Kwabena Asenso Onyina, and midfielder Michael Ampedu for misconduct following opening day defeat to Midiama SC at the Awak Stadium on Sunday. According to the prosecutor, the club official, Kwabena Asenso Onyina, verbally attacked the match officials while on their way to the dressing room and also attempted to physically attack the referees. Meanwhile, midfielder Michael Ampedu is reportedly to have physically assaulted the centre referee, Charles Benley Bulu, by punching his mouth on the field of play while protesting the referee's decision to send off a teammate. The club was also charged after its supporters reportedly deflated the rear tires of a vehicle belonging to the centre referee, Charles Benley Bulu. The club is expected to respond to the charges on or before Wednesday, September 14, 2022, following which the GFA Disciplinary Committee will adjudicate the 3 cases. Now, despite concerns about a possible postponement of the All-Africa Games due to logistical delays, the National Sports Authority boss, Professor Chumesi, insists there is nothing to worry about because the country has enough facilities to host the Games.
You remember when at the time when we were in Morocco and the whole African Union honored Ghana to become the very first country, first in the history to host all Africa for this particular African Olympics, the African Games. And I think people have forgotten what they base their decisions on. It was not out of nothing that they said, Ghana, go and host it. They knew what Ghana can do. Ghana has hosted, in terms of football, Africa, AFCON, how many times? I think we've done it about, how many? 2, not less than 2. And 2008, I think you remember President Kufuor's time, we hosted it. Yeah. And everybody was very cheerful. And they know our capacity, what can we do? So even the existing facilities that we had was enough for them to be able to have confidence in Ghana that we can do it. But as we have indicated, the president has said that for him, during his term in office, he wants to expand sporting infrastructure. Because it is when you have the sports infrastructure that you can now have a reliable, sustainable teams. Preparation, production of athletes who will continue to give you the medals and the laurels. So that is the agenda of this government. That no matter what, we take opportunity of anything and then add on whatever facility that is needed.
He was speaking to my colleague of Love FM, Stephen Zando there. This is where we bring the curtains on today's edition of Sports to a close. There's more stories on myjaw.online/sports.
You're welcome to Showbiz, and let's get straight to it. So as part of the build-up to the 24th of September, which is the Global Citizen Festival, the organization have been having some exercises, and the beach cleanup exercise was one of the things. Well, my colleague Nico was there, and what they were saying was actually that, you see, they're giving the platforms for citizens to be able to point out some of these things to the decision makers so they can take action, just as their theme is. Let's go there and see what happened over there at the beach.
I've been to several beaches in Ghana since I've been living there, and I've seen some dead turtles. And so I think it's nice as well to go to the sea every weekend and enjoy a clean sea. So I'm very preoccupied by environment issues, and that's why I came with this girl to clean the beach.
I love the environment. What is beauty outside if it's not inside? It's very important that we as citizens, we protect our natural resources. So to me, I don't need much more motivation than that. I love being out in nature, and that's what motivated me to come here.
How has the cleanup exercise, how has it been? How successful has it been? I see people doing yoga and stuff.
Today's activation with Punch Plastic was incredibly successful. We had a great turnout of action takers, of people who care about the planet. We also were able to do the beach cleanup exercise here, where we collected refuse. We collected mainly plastic refuse, but we also collected data. One of the issues that we see the climate crisis manifesting as here in Africa is around environmental degradation and inadequate sanitation management. And so today's exercise was really to call to attention the need for improved sanitation management, and also our responsibility as
And that is what happened at the beach. But it looks like Kitty and Kwame Eugene are really having a great time in Germany. So they started off their tour, the German tour, on the 9th. They started in Munich, and then on the 10th they went to Berlin, and on the 11th they ended it up at Berlin and Cologne. So those are some of the visuals from the concert that they've had so far, and the Germans just can't have enough of them. They'll be in Amsterdam from the 13th and then move to Australia. It's actually a 10-city tour that they are having, a 10-city European tour that Kitty, Kwame Eugene are having. But so far, it's been wonderfully incredible for the two of them. And that is how we wrap up, yeah.
And that's how we wrap up the bulletin as well.
Okay.
There's more news on myjoyonline.com. Have a great day. Coming up next is Marketplace. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One time.